All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our post-election town hall. I'm Justin Strasburger. I am the executive director with Full Plates, Full Potential. It's great to have so many folks in the room with us. What we're hoping to do today is to share out a little bit of information about current state of things and some of the things that we're hearing from Washington and Augusta and what we're thinking of paying attention to and hear from you of what questions you have. I do want to acknowledge that there's a lot of stuff going on right now, particularly in Washington, and there's I think a lot more questions than answers around some of those things. And we'll share out what we know, but I just want to name there's going to be a lot of things that are still need to play out and keep an eye on. As Anna mentioned in the chat, we will absolutely have time for Q&A. We'd encourage you to use the Q&A feature of this webinar to submit your questions. That will allow us to easily answer them and keep track of them all. You can also use the chat feature at any time if you have questions or concerns about things or other things you want to throw out there. All right, so we are going to get started. I wanted to kick things off just by level setting, and I know we have a wide variety of folks in the room. I saw a lot of folks who are, deeply involved in this work that, are close partners, as well as folks like donors and supporters who may be a little less familiar with some of the specifics of the work. So just to do some level setting. I do think it's important that everyone understands that food insecurity is absolutely on the rise again after seeing some significant drops during the pandemic era, largely tied to a lot of the tremendous relief programs and expansions of aid that came in. Oops, sorry. Chat seems to be disabled. Okay. Let's stick with the Q&A then. And I'm not sure why chat is disabled. Anyway, back to what I was saying. So after seeing food insecurity trend down nationally over the last 10 years or so, unfortunately, since the end of the pandemic, we have seen a steep rise in food insecurity. In fact, nationwide, food insecurity is at levels it has not been at since about a decade before the pandemic. Slightly good news here in Maine is that we've been able to buck that trend a bit. Food insecurity is absolutely rising, but our food insecurity rates are around where they were right before the pandemic. Still nothing to be excited about, although I think a sign that there are some things we're doing here that are maybe having an effect and things that we should be paying attention to. In terms of specific statistics, the most common statistic that we point to is the Feeding America food insecurity rate, which has about 1 in 5 Maine kids come from households that are food insecure. We know that that data is absolutely undercounting folks. And so another data source I would love to point folks to, and we can share this out, is the ALICE data, which comes from the United Way and stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, and Employed. And this is meant to capture the population of folks in Maine, well, nationwide, but we have Maine data, who are above the federal poverty levels and who are employed, but are asset limited, meaning that they are not able to make ends meet. This data takes into account things like rent and housing costs, groceries, all that sort of thing. And what it will shows us is that there are actually almost half of Maine families, 44% of Maine families are currently struggling to make ends meet. That is a crisis and one that we absolutely need to respond to. And what I'd love to do is to give a little bit more of a picture of what's happening on the ground. I believe we have Kelly from one of our on the ground from the Piscataquis Regional Food Center, who was going to chime in about a little bit of what she's been seeing on the day-to-day. I'm just trying to find Kelly on here so I can promote her. There we go. Thank you, Kelly. I'm trying to find you. There we go. Just give me 1 second. Oops.
Good afternoon.
Thanks.
So just want you can hear me now?
We can.
Uh, Thank you. Uh, the Food Center in Dover Foxcroft opened its doors right as the pandemic um, funds were repealed. We started with 200 families. We ended last month with just shy of 800 families. To give you a sense of the impact the decreases in SNAP benefits have had, we had, what is that, close to a 300% increase in just under 2 years. Our largest growing segment are children. We're seeing a lot of Alice families, many working families coming in without enough funds to pay for food. A lot of large families in our area. We're very rural in Piscataquis. We're serving Piscataquis, Penobscot, and Somerset. And uh, the number of people losing jobs, losing unemployment benefits, and hungry kids is just really growing in our area. It's really disheartening. We're signing up probably 30 to 35 new households every month. Give you a sense of what we're looking at. When SNAP benefits declined, it really just put a lot of people back into poverty. It's a good summation for me.
Thank you, Kelly. Can you speak a little bit just more broadly? I mean, I think you're alluding to it with sort of the direction there, but about just the value of these federal programs, SNAP, WIC, the federal school meals programs, in terms of taking the pressure off of the charitable food system.
Absolutely. Uh, when we're the charitable food system, on our end, we're spending just on food alone approximately $12 a household every time they come to visit. So that means that when SNAP benefits end or WIC benefits are reduced, those families are turning to the emergency food system for assistance. And every family that comes in, that's just straight money out the door for us. SNAP is a wonderful program because it not only helps people afford food, but it puts that money right back into the local economy. So our local grocery stores benefit. All of the stores in our area make money when people have SNAP benefits to spend. When I'm buying food from the food pantry through the food bank, those funds are not going to my local community. And if I have to go outside of the food bank to purchase food, then those funds are going to Amazon or Walmart, and not benefiting us locally, which in turn doesn't help our economy any and increase jobs. So SNAP and WIC, they just make life so much easier for those families. Having an EBT card removes the stigma. It just does so many things right. And losing those benefits, some of our seniors or older adults in our community have a $23 monthly benefit. And I challenge anyone to figure out how $23 is supposed to help someone who's food insecure. So we really, and until this reverses in some sense, we don't see a reprieve.
Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate you sharing. Just a couple more stats on SNAP. So we know that every dollar of SNAP equates to about $1.79 in economic impact locally. And so another way to think about that, because Maine takes in more in federal tax dollars than we pay out, is every dollar of federal dollars coming into the state equates to $1.79 that is staying right here in the state. We know SNAP dollars are overwhelmingly spent locally. They're not going, they can't go to be, savings and that sort of thing. And so the more we're able to get dollars directly into the pockets of the folks who need them, they're able to make their own decisions. They're able to take care of their families and be less reliant on the charitable food system, which is still such a critical piece of the puzzle. So thank you, Kelly, for all the work you all are doing, and as well as I know there are representatives from Good Shepherd Food Bank and a number of other community partners, and we're so grateful for all that work. But what this means is that the stronger we're able to make SNAP, to make WIC, to make federal nutrition programs like school meals and summer meals, that's the ball game. If we're able to make those really strong, folks aren't going to need to go visit Kelly as much. The slight good news, I mentioned Maine's bucking some trends, and one of the things that, we're a little biased perhaps, but we at Full Plates believe that school meals for all has a lot to do with that. Um, since we passed school meals for all here and it went into effect, we have seen a significant increase in meal participation rates. In fact, last year, Maine led the nation in increase in lunch participation rate and was third for breakfast participation rate. We are currently serving about 6 million more meals a year than we were before the school meals for all went into effect. Last year, there were almost 30 million meals served in Maine schools, which is such a tremendous impact and a potential for growth there. Um, Robin Kerber on our team and I were down in Washington, D.C. a few weeks ago with friends from across the country at a convening hosted by FRAC, the Food Research Action Center, which is a big national anti-hunger agency. And I'm sad to share that the state of school meals across the country is not quite as strong as it is here in Maine. I would argue we are in as strong of a place as anyone. There are places that this has become a bit of a political football in a way that it has not here. Folks are having issues with funding the funding mechanisms because a lot of them had tied them to more short-term things related to pandemic relief funds and other sorts of things. Anna will share a little bit more later, but we are in as strong a place as we can be, and I think that's something that we absolutely are going to focus on continuing to protect because it's just working. Right now, we know about 2/3 of all Maine kids are eating school lunch. And our goal is not that every Maine kid is eating school lunch, of course. Our goal is that every Maine kid that would like to and needs to is able to take a part in school lunch with a meal that is meeting their needs, meeting their religious or cultural needs, that they have enough time to eat it, all that sort of thing. But another key piece to what is making school meals for all work and what is allowing us to sort of see the kind of growth we're having is the community eligibility provision. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about why the community eligibility provision and direct certification are so really valuable for here. And I was going to ask Ryan Parker, who leads Food Corps here in the state, to speak a little bit about that.
Great. Thanks, Justin. Really appreciate it. And just want to give a shout out to Full Plates, Full Potential in general for all the great work and leadership that's happened across the state and across the country. I know a lot of different states and organizations are looking to Full Plates as leaders in this area. And the strength of our school meal programs, I think, speaks to that. Um, I'll just say that CEP, for those, again, I don't know familiarity with folks on the call, so I'll give kind of a broad overview, but CEP is essentially a community eligibility provision, is essentially a way for school nutrition programs that qualify to provide meals at no cost to all students in their school or district, regardless of income level. And the way that works is that it's based on another way for the federal government to verify income socioeconomic levels. So that direct certification that Justin was mentioning is just a way for essentially nutrition programs to provide meals without going through the hassle and real problematic struggle of collecting individual meal application forms at the beginning of the year, which for anyone involved in school nutrition, that's been the way that it's been done for, I think, the last 2 decades in Maine, where at the beginning of every school year, the school nutrition department director mostly and cafeteria leads have to go to individual families, get them to fill out this application that essentially gathers their socioeconomic status. And then that goes into a formula, and the school nutrition program determines what level of assistance that family may need, whether it's they qualify for free meals, partial pay meals, or full pay meals. Community eligibility provision, CEP, essentially gets rid of all of that administrative burden for a school nutrition program, and essentially allows school nutrition professionals to do what the reason they're there is to provide meals to the kiddos throughout the state. So community eligibility is for some reason controversial at the federal level going into the future. I know that there have been some struggles at the state level. I've served on my school board for 6 years, and I know before the most recent increase in eligibility for districts, we were in some situations dealing with districts that had some schools in their district that were CEP eligible and some that were not. And I know in my district for a long time, our school nutrition director was fighting really hard to overcome this. But we, because of the way school districts are structured, we had school board members that did not want the schools that were eligible for CEP to take part in it because the schools in their community were not eligible. We eventually overcame that and were able to provide CEP or qualify CEP for the entire district, and our participation went through the roof, which I think there's a lot of ethical reasons to provide meals for kids. I mean, I'm not going to go into that. I think I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but my perspective has always been from the school nutrition perspective. It just makes the program more feasible, more economically feasible, because the more participation you have from the kiddos in the school, the more revenue that generates for the program, which then they're able to turn around and put back into the program, whether that's updating ancient equipment, hiring more staff to provide more scratch cooked meals, increasing the palatability of the ingredients, purchasing more locally, etc. So there's a lot of great reasons for these programs to exist. And with the increase in eligibility, more schools in the state of Maine became eligible and started serving more meals. Um, I I really am hopeful that the program does not get rolled back to what it was before the pandemic and before the Biden administration increased eligibility, because it's just serving so many more kids and it's taking that administrative burden off the plate of the nutrition directors and cafeteria leads. And I'll just share one quick story myself. I have been a culinary arts student, and I did an internship with a nutrition director here in the state for a semester. And this gentleman happens to be a world-class chef, has worked all over the country, all over the world, served in restaurants in Japan, incredibly creative, is really interested in flavor profile, making meals palatable for kids, making them more interested, more plant-based meals. He's essentially the exact kind of guy you want in charge of a school nutrition program. And I was just appalled the first several weeks of my internship with him that most of his time was spent dealing with eligibility paperwork from families and determining who was and who was not eligible, and then chasing meal debt. As soon as school meals for all passed, and then the increase in eligibility for CEP happened, that allows people like him to stop dealing with that sort of thing and go into the kitchen, train his staff, purchase more local ingredients, do the things that we kind of, I think, intuitively expect school nutrition directors should be doing, but that they really weren't able to do to the extent that they are now. So I really want to see these programs continue and continue to expand, to be honest.
Thank you, Ryan. A couple other things I just wanted to mention about CEP. So, Ryan mentioned about the significantly reduced administrative burden. This is especially true when it's paired with direct certification, which already happens, but thanks to the state, and I know we have, I know Jane McLucas is on the call, and I think we may have someone from DHHS, but Maine is now participating in the latest direct certification pilot around Medicaid. And so what that means is that in addition to folks who are on SNAP, for example, folks who are on Maine Care are now also eligible to be directly certified without having to fill out paperwork. We already have a sense of what this might look like because we used this over the summer during the Sunbucks rollout that happened this summer, formerly called Summer EBT. And what we saw was there were at least 40,000 kids who were made eligible there through the direct certification with Maine Care, who had not been previously direct certified. And so what that tells us is that that's potentially 40,000 kids who are in families that might be eligible for SNAP, are likely eligible for SNAP. And so that's an opportunity for those families from an outreach perspective, but it also simplifies the administrative process. And there truly is a pathway if CEP, stays expanded and with direct certification to frankly, do away with school meal benefit forms altogether, because you would be, through direct certification, capturing everyone who would be in that free and reduced category, and everyone else would be in the paid category, and we wouldn't really need the forms for them. So to significantly reduce administrative burden, when you pair it with direct certification, and also reduces human error, any potential for fraud in the system, which we do know is significantly small, the instances of fraud, but this eliminates that even more. And then the other key reasons why it's so important for us to capture this data, even though school meals are free for everyone, is two reasons. One, we need to make sure that the federal government is paying their fair share of this. And that means that they should be covering the correct meal costs for all of the free and reduced students. And when we're not able to tell the federal government who is accurately in those categories, school nutrition has to bill that at the paid rate, which means we're not getting the fair share. And that means the state is covering an outsized portion of the costs. If there are any threats to school meals for all at the state level, it would come down to the cost piece. And so the more we can do to ensure that the state is only on the hook for their fair share of this and not an outsized share, the stronger we will continue to make school meals for all here in the state. The other important reason why this is important is, while school meals are free for everybody, the eligibility rates also impact what communities are able to offer other federal programs, like the CACFP After School Meals Program and the Summer Food Service Program, Summer Meals Program. These are critical programs, particularly the Summer Meals Program, for filling in gaps when kids are not in school. And we know that there are areas that are at risk of not being able to offer these programs simply because we don't have accurate data. And so we are very interested in ensuring that the continued success of CEP and Medicaid direct certification to allow us to move in a really efficient direction. And as Ryan shared, allow our school nutrition teams in particular to really just focus on feeding kids and not the admin side of things. All right. I was hoping that Jeannie Lapointe would be on the call, but I think she may be tied up in the in the snowstorm. But I'm wondering if there is a school nutrition director who is, 'cause I know there's a couple on the call, and you could just raise your hand, who would be interested in sharing any of their perspective on what they're seeing right now and how they're seeing the impacts of school meals for all. And things like direct certification and CEP. Okay. I do see a question here from Ethan on how much do we believe the state is covering now that the feds would. I don't have that answer right now because it's hard to know exactly what that need is. What I can tell you is that in the first year of School Meals for All, when we had to go back to the school meal benefit form and we looked at the results of that and compared it to the free and reduced rates from right before the pandemic, and saw the differences there. If you wanted to assume that the need had not shifted dramatically and wanted to use the rates from right before the pandemic, it would be about $18 million that the state was paying that should have been federal, to just give you a sense of the scale of it. So that's just a rough sense of that. All right. So at this point, I'm going to hand it off to Anna, our incredible Director of Program and Policy, to talk a little bit about, sort of, now that we've laid the landscape of what we're seeing and expecting.
Thank you for that kind introduction, Justin. And hi, everybody. Nice to see you all here. Thanks for joining us today. And a big thank you to Kelly and Ryan for joining to share some of their wisdom. I'm just going to pull up my notes because we do have some very recent updates on what is happening in DC. So as Justin shared, we are expecting with an incoming new administration and a new Congress to potentially really need to be on the defense with these important programs. But we don't quite know what that's going to look like right now. But what we do know is that we are currently in a lame duck Congress session. So that just means that we have a Congress that, many members were voted out, won't be returning in January. So they're kind of at the end of their term, and they're finishing up their business. And so at this point, they're working on an end of the year spending package. And what that will include is an extension of the current Farm Bill. And I know a lot of folks here in Maine and across the country have been advocating for a farm bill that Congress has been working on for what seems like years at this point. And we really haven't gotten anywhere. We've seen multiple versions of a farm bill that some look really positive and really good, and others are scary and put things like SNAP at risk. So what we expect with this extension of the Farm Bill that would be included in the spending package is exactly what we have in the Farm Bill right now. So no scary riders, no cuts to SNAP. So we'll just have the same funding in the Farm Bill, the same provisions in the Farm Bill for a 1-year extension. Once that is passed as a part of this package and a new Congress is sitting in January, we expect them to take up the Farm Bill again. And I can talk a little bit more about what we think might happen with that Farm Bill. Also in this spending package will be a continuing resolution, which is basically just keeping the government open and working. And that will last through the end of March. And there will also be an emergency disaster relief funding bill. So the big thing that we are pushing for in this end of the year spending package and in this 1-year Farm Bill extension is replacement benefits for victims of SNAP skimming, which is SNAP theft. So what this looks like is when someone uses their SNAP EBT card or their Pine Tree card to purchase groceries, there's skimming technology in that point of sale system that basically steals that person's benefits right off of their card. And we are becoming increasingly concerned about SNAP skimming here in Maine, as there's been a steady rise in those cases of stolen SNAP benefits. And this is true across the country, and this has been happening over the last year. And so Congress was able to respond by creating funding to replace stolen SNAP benefits. That funding is set to expire on December 20th. And so we are asking Congress to include an extension of SNAP replacement benefits for victims of skimming. And this is very urgent and timely. And so we have just reached out to our members of Congress today, asking them to weigh in with their colleagues on the Senate Agricultural Committee and the House Agricultural Committee. Those are the folks who will be making decisions about whether or not those replacement benefits are included in this 1-year extension of the Farm Bill. If anyone has folks in their network who are victims of SNAP skimming, they can still take action and have those benefits replaced. And I'll put a link to the form that they would fill out to have benefits replaced. So please share that with your networks if you think there might be folks who are falling victim to SNAP skimming. And then if anyone is interested in reaching out to Maine's congressional delegation to urge them to include SNAP replacement benefits in this Farm Bill extension, please reach out to me and I'll put my email in the Q&A for anyone who wants some talking points. So that's what we're seeing happening right now in DC. So that's the urgent ask at the moment. What we expect to see in the new Congress and with the incoming administration is that SNAP and CEP will likely be under threat. And so we're really going to need to be on the defense. So what we are hearing is with CEP, this recent expansion that allowed a lot more schools to participate in CEP, that is likely to be walked back, and that we'll be back to where we were before USDA was able to expand CEP to include more schools. And then the other piece of that is that schools have been able to group together to really optimize CEP and maximize their federal funding, and that might also be under attack. So we'll be working hard alongside partners across the country to advocate against those changes. And then we'll, of course, be advocating to protect and strengthen SNAP as well. These are critical programs, as you've been hearing throughout this panel discussion. And then we're also, thankfully, in Maine, and we're thinking about what we'll be able to do at the state level to continue to strengthen these federal nutrition programs and strengthen school meal programs. And so this session, we'll have a new legislature sitting very soon, and they're going to be getting to work in January. And so we'll be working on making sure that schools have an opportunity to access funding for necessary kitchen equipment. We'll be working to strengthen and protect school meals for all. I know that a lot of folks are worried, what would happen if School Meals for All went away? Is School Meals for All under threat? We don't think it is in Maine. It is incredibly popular. It's having a huge impact. And we have just an enormous coalition of people from every corner of our state who would advocate strongly to maintain School Meals for All. So we're not worried that it's under attack, but we are always working to strengthen that policy. And then we're also continuing to hear from students across the state that they do not have enough time to eat lunch. So we are working on solutions to make sure that kids have plenty of time to eat, so that the access to school meals that we've worked so hard on here in Maine isn't just that they can access it, but that they also have time to sit and enjoy and actually eat a nutritious meal at school. So that's what we expect to see. We will certainly be on the defense at the federal level, but we think we have a lot of opportunity to continue to invest in these programs here at the state level. And if anybody has any questions about any of the things that we've talked about today, please go ahead and raise your hand. Happy to answer questions live, or if you're more comfortable putting your questions right in the Q&A, we can answer them that way as well.
Really? No questions? All right, we answered everyone's questions. Oh, here we go. Heather. All right. How do we see support from USDA changing, if at all, with the new admin? One thing, and this may have been on Heather's mind as one of our sub-recipients from through our School Food System Innovation Fund. We are not at all concerned about that funding. That funding has been 100% committed to us, and we are taking steps to make sure that that can't be touched. So that funding is totally solid. It will remain to be seen, sort of the relationship with USDA, how many, who is still in seat there, and that sort of thing. It really will it still needs to play out in terms of the staffing pieces and things like that. We are absolutely working with folks now before the new administration to just shore things up and think about what we might be able to anticipate. But unfortunately, there's just a lot that we don't know. Anna, are you looking at some of these questions too?
I am. I was just answering in the Q&A. So Ashley has a question about asking if we'll be putting out talking points on any of this information so that state partners can help spread the word. We can certainly share talking points. Things are kind of ever shifting and changing. And so I think our plan is to put out opportunities to take action at both the congressional level and here in the state once the legislature is sitting. So this is also similar to Martha's question about any suggestions for preemptive actions to take. And I might let Justin answer that question, but I'm going to put my email into under Ashley's question as the answer because our chat's not working. So anyone who would like talking points to reach out specifically about SNAP skimming to our members of Congress, please reach out to me. If you need any other information about anything we've talked about today, you can also reach out to me and I'm happy to share. So thank you. I appreciate that question, Ashley.
To Martha's question about suggestions of preemptive actions. So again, we don't have a sort of a specific ask at the state level right now. I will say, while School Meals for All is safe here, I think it never hurts to reinforce just how important all of these programs are. And I don't just mean School Meals for All, I mean SNAP, those sorts of things. It never hurts for legislators to hear from their constituents about how important these programs are to the people in their community. So I would put that out there, but in terms of sort of really pushing action and a big sort of push, I don't think right now is the time, but we will absolutely, and y'all are already on our mailing list, I imagine, because that's how you're on this. But if you're not, please sign up because we will be playing a much larger role than I think we have in even last session in terms of really pushing out opportunities for folks to take action and make their voices heard. So I think nothing can be done right now. Again, as Anna shared, we are seeing the governor is planning to put forth a budget that is conservative and sort of keeping the status quo, but without much room for sort of growth and expansion. We'll see what the legislature decides to do with that. But and we're not just going to be sitting here playing defense, but and Anna will share out more in the near future about some more specific bills and things like that as those start coming together. But for right now, just again, anytime we have an opportunity to share with folks just how valuable these programs are, I think that would be helpful. We are thinking a lot also about, I realize we're probably preaching to the choir here a lot. Ryan sure said this is just something that we should just be doing because it's the right thing to do. We obviously agree with that, but we also recognize that there are folks that have concerns, for example, about costs of programs or administration. And so another thing we're going to be doing is just developing talking points about these issues that reach a much broader audience. So yes, we will continue to have talking points about how this is a great way to take care of our community, but you also see us sharing out talking points about, for example, how rolling back CEP would result in a tremendous administrative burden and open up room for human error and fraud in ways that folks who are maybe more inclined to think about that sort of thing would hopefully also be opposed to. Or thinking about all the ways that, say, school meals have the ability to impact local agriculture and those sorts of things. So you'll see from us, and I know we're already working with some of you on the call on some of this, just different types of talking points to be able to really take a broad tent approach, because we know that hunger should not be a political issue, but we understand that some of the programs and things connected to it do get politicized. I rephrase that. Hunger is a political issue. Hunger should not be a partisan political issue. That's what I meant to say. And we do recognize that some of these programs do get partisanly politicized, and we're going to try and confront that, if that's making sense. Anna, do you want to speak about the local foods fund?
Yeah, Carol has a question in the chat about that the local foods fund here in Maine is being underutilized. Wondering if that will become more important to feeding kids in Maine and is CEP related. So this is a great question. Thanks for that, Carol. So the local foods fund, for those who may not be familiar, is Maine's local food purchasing incentive program for schools, where they are reimbursed $1 for every $3 that they spend on local food. This is really important way to support schools to purchase local foods that are often more expensive than the food they might purchase for the rest of their program. There is a $5,000 cap for all schools to participate in this program, and it has historically been underutilized. There are quite a few school districts that use the local food fund to its max, and they max it out every year. And then there are many that don't have the capacity, whether that's staffing, the relationships with local farms, or just the time to source local food. And so that is an area of implementation support that Full Plates is very focused on, and a lot of our partners are focused on, just helping to address those barriers that are very real in school kitchens that prevent them from sourcing local food and using that in their menus. It is incredibly important for feeding kids in Maine on a lot of levels, and is becoming increasingly more important as we think about regionalizing our food system and really, making sure that kids have the healthiest food available to them at school. The USDA did just strengthen the school nutrition standards and eliminated in a phased out way sugars at breakfast, and a lot of other changes that will help to provide healthier food to students at school. And one way to do that is to source local food and increase scratch cooking. But that is all a big lift for school nutrition programs, especially when they are understaffed, have failing equipment, and are just dealing with crunch time and very small budgets. And so the local food fund will continue to be important. One more point about local food incentive purchasing programs. USDA does have a federal program called the Local Food for Schools, which was continued again. So that will be available. It was available last year. It'll be available again in future years. And it is 100% match for any local purchasing. So another reason that the Local Foods Fund, our state fund, has been underutilized is because we've been encouraging, alongside the Department of Ed, schools to use the federal funds first, because it's honestly, it's better. It's 100% reimbursement. And then the final question, which is another great one, is CEP related to participation in the local food fund. Absolutely. As Ryan pointed out, when school nutrition professionals are spending less time chasing paperwork and lunch money, they have a lot more time to think about what they're feeding kids and to focus on, recipe development and think about where the food's coming from. And so CEP really supports them to be able to do that.
But it does not impact who's eligible to take part in the local food fund. Any other questions? I'd also, I know we have a lot of partners on the call representing a wide variety of organizations, and I'd welcome anyone who has, other things they'd like to share about this that, we haven't touched upon. Just feel free to raise your hand, and I can invite you to come off mute and share what you would like to. Full Plates obviously only represents a sort of a sliver of much broader work here. Well, all right. Well, I will say thank you all for joining us. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We will be keeping our eye on all of this, and you can expect to hear lots from us. But don't hesitate to reach out with questions, concerns, ideas. We love getting creative. So Anna and I will stick around if there are folks who do have continued questions. But yeah, otherwise, thank you all for joining us, and appreciate you taking the time to get a little bit informed. And especially thank you to all of our wonderful partners for all the hard and incredible work that y'all are doing every day. Especially our frontline folks at School Nutrition and the charitable food system, these folks who are interacting with people every single day doing the real work. So thank you all.